Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business News Afternoon Report for Monday, the 14th of August, 2023. I'm Michael Thompson. Every afternoon, we've got the 5 stories that happened today that you need to know about, so let's jump into it. Story number 1, the S&P ASX 200 closed 0.9% down to 7,277 points. Most sectors fell over the day, with the biggest declines in metals and mining and materials. Big miners BHP and Rio Tinto were both down more than 2%. That was largely due to concerns about the Chinese economy. Fortescue dropped about 1.8%. The top performer on the ASX 200 was Lake Resources, up 7.7%, and then carsales.com up 7%. That came after a big reporting day with a 301% increase in statutory net profit to $646 million. JB Hi-Fi had a 2.8% rise after reporting its full-year results. Leading the losses, I mentioned the miners before, but Sierra Resources was down 6.6%, Elders Limited down 6.1%, and Pilbara Minerals down 6%. Lend-Lease was off 2.8% after reporting a net after-tax loss for the year of $232 million. The Aussie dollar, definitely worth a mention, fell to 9-month lows of 64.75 US cents. On to story number 2 now, and a new Commonwealth Bank report released today shows consumer spending remained flat for the month of July and has weakened over the year. The latest CommBank Household Spending Insights Index uses data from 7 million customers. It found spending increased in the year to July in a range of categories, most noticeably a 13% jump in spending on insurance. This is clearly reflecting a rise in prices, but there were significant declines in categories like household services, transport and household goods. The index is likely to weaken further over 2023 and into 2024 as those higher interest rates really start to take effect. Story number 3 now. Apple is warning the Australian government not to extend regulations on its payment services, or it might just affect iPhone security and privacy. The government is currently considering a proposal to extend the Reserve Bank's remit to cover digital payment platforms. This would include Apple Pay. At the moment, the RBA doesn't have the powers to request data from tech companies or regulate them like credit companies. Major banks are encouraging this shift. Apple claims, though, that its service is a digital reproduction of a physical wallet, though it is noticeable that they do charge when users pay with their smartphone, with banks paying more than $110 million in fees. Apple says that additional regulation would actually stifle innovation, affect intellectual property rights, and also weaken iPhone security. On to story number 4, insolvencies surged over the June quarter in a clear sign that businesses are facing some trouble. In fact, across the country, insolvency appointments were up 57%. The Corporate Insolvency Index has found the final quarter of 2022-2023 had 3,008 external appointments, up from 1,921 in the same quarter in 2021. Bear in mind, there was major disruption in the insolvency industry during COVID, with a lot of government measures introduced to shelter businesses from being wound up. But this data suggests businesses are, in fact, doing it tougher. Some of this may be due to difficult trading conditions, but it's also potentially being driven by increased debt collection activity. Insolvency Australia says the tax office is pursuing, quote, legacy debt, and they think more businesses will face insolvency in the months to come. They're seeing the big banks increasing court wind-ups too. And finally, story number 5, greenwashing claims. More of them. We are hearing more and more about this. This time it's the big banks at the centre of concerns raised by the Australian Conservation Foundation's new benchmark report. The report has named and shamed who they think is the worst of the nation's banks for fulfilling net zero emission commitments. ANZ came out worst. The ACF says there's a significant gap between what the banks said they'll do and the investment needed to actually meet this commitment. The foundation ranked the banks out of 100 on multiple indicators across emissions reduction, governance and strategy. ANZ scored 35. Macquarie scored 46, followed by Westpac at 47, NAB at 55 and CBA at 62. ANZ told the Australian that it fully rejects accusations of greenwashing and has favourable scores on several benchmarks over its disclosures and commitments, including from other non-profit organisations. That's it for the afternoon report for Monday, the 14th of August, 2023. Don't forget to hit follow on the podcast and find Fear and Greed on LinkedIn, Instagram, X and Facebook. Join us tomorrow morning for the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed, the top 5 business stories you need to know in 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson. Enjoy your evening.